Hi everyone, how's it going today? Today I am doing something different. This is not a normal review that I usually do, but actually this is more of a computer build based off the B450 gaming motherboard by ASUS, the ROG Strix. I also really love building computers, and most of you know that I do guitar videos, but today I'm doing a computer build, and I thought I would bring you along with me. Now, with my limited setup, I'm not actually going to take you through the building process because there are so many videos out there, but I'm going to take you through the parts that I'm using for this build, and then I'll bring you back once the computer build is complete. So let's go through the parts. First, this is the Gskill FlareX DDR4 modules. These are clocked at 3200 megahertz. I actually have these in my X470 build, and they run at advertised speeds. And that's also an ASUS board, and I'm really happy with that. It's not the gaming motherboard like this one is. I actually have the Prime board. But this is the Gskill FlareX 3200 megahertz memory kit, 16 gigabytes in size. For the CPU, I had chosen the Ryzen 5 2600, 6-core 12-thread CPU, 3.4 gigahertz base clock with a 3.9 gigahertz boost. I am going to be using the stock cooler for this build. For our power supply, I have chosen the Corsair CX 650 watt. This is the non-modular version. In my current PC, I do have the semi-modular, but I think that this non-modular will work just fine. For our storage, I have chosen the Seagate Barracuda 2 terabyte hard drive. I haven't taken out of the anti-static bag yet, because I don't want any problems during the build until I have to take it out. For our primary drive, I have chosen the Western Digital Blue 500 gigabyte SSD. In my current build, I have the 250 gig. These drives are wonderful, people, and I really recommend them. For the graphics card, and this is a beast. This is the ROG Strix GeForce 1060 by ASUS. Now, there might be some of you wondering why I didn't buy the 1660 or the RTX 2060, and it's basically because we don't need it for the setup we're using it for. And also for the motherboard, we are using the ROG Strix B450 gaming board. This board is not being used for gaming, it's being used for professional workloads. But I do believe that it's going to work just fine. For the case that we're going to use, we are using the Phanteks P400a Non RGB version. I actually have this in my current build, and it is wonderful. For a $70 case, I can actually recommend this case. Got your two USB 3s on the top, got your audio, microphone jacks, here's your power button with your HDD LED. But once the build is complete, I will bring you guys back and show you the final product. Welcome back, everyone. The computer build is now complete. It did take me about 3 hours to finish this up. See that we have our 1060 installed. One thing that I was noticing is that there's a tiny little bit of sag on this graphics card, but it doesn't look too horrible. So I got 2 of these screws down here holding it over here, and I think that's going to do just fine for holding it on. And the hard drive and the SSD are in the back side where the cable management is. So I'm not going to take that apart. Now I have already turned this board on, installed Windows, done some performance testing, and if there is any of you that have doubts about these B450 boards and how well they run, I would tell you all to never doubt this board. This was probably one of the most exciting builds I've ever done. So let's go ahead and get ready to turn on the power. So as you see, there's only RGB up there. There is RGB on the graphics card, but there's no RGB until that till the computer's turned on. So I'm going to go up here and we'll get ready to turn it on. I like those light indicators. See if I can get into the BIOS. Okay. All right. So now I'm in the BIOS. Now I wanted to go in here for a reason. The BIOS is version 3003, and I had just updated that today. For some of you, if you buy this board brand new, you're going to have BIOS version 2605. I recommend that you update that BIOS as soon as you get the board. Although some of you might be asking why. Okay, now we're in this area. In version 2605, this area where the DOCP profile is, this area was not in the easy profile on version 2605. You actually had to go into advanced to turn that on. And one thing I had noticed with this CPU at least, the core voltage was running almost to 1.4 volts, which I have no clue why ASUS was having the core voltage running that high on a 2600 CPU. See that we have our 2 drives here, the SSD and our 2 GB storage. Let's go back into advanced mode. See here, I got this set up at DOCP standard. I notice on my Prime board that this BCLK frequency is actually not included on that board. So I'm wondering if that's a feature that's not available on that board, which I don't really care about. Over here you can see that you have all these monitors over here, frequency, voltage, memory set at 3200 megahertz. I have heard some complaints on this board that some people have only been able to get up to 3000 without this crashing. After doing a stress test for 2 hours, I had no blue screens whatsoever with this, with that memory set that way. CPU temperatures do get up to about 68 to 70 degrees on the stock cooler, but that is plenty. I really like this stealth cooler. Here in the settings here for your fans, I don't recommend that you do anything with these. So we didn't make any changes to the BIOS. Let's just quit without saving. Hit OK. And there you go. Boot timing on this computer is actually really fast. I'm very impressed. So this is the completed build of the ROG Strix B450-F gaming Ryzen 5 2600. Great build, guys. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Hey guys, what's going on today? It's been about a day since I been working with this build, and I believe there is a few things that I should point out to those who may be interested in this board or may already have this type of build already. Again, this is the ASUS ROG Strix B450 gaming motherboard with the Ryzen 5 2600. Let's go ahead and do a boot test. See how fast this thing boots up. Whoops. There we go. Okay, so boot timing is actually really quick on here. I'm really impressed with that. The 500 gigabyte solid state drive really does pack a punch when it comes to speed. Really impressive in my opinion, especially for a AMD build like this. Okay, there's a few things I want to go over with you, which some of you may not notice. Because many reviewers like to monitor voltages, temps, clock speeds, fan speeds, and the most popular one used is Hardware Monitor by CPU ID. And let me bring this up for you because there is one notable issue that I noticed this motherboard brings up. Okay, so let's go up to the voltages. See here on the 12 volt voltage, it's reading at 9.19 current, and the max is 9.974. That, my friends, is wrong. I've tested this out also with Hardware Info or HW Info 64, and I had a version of ADA 64 that I also checked this out with. All three of them show this same voltage. One thing I've been told is that on some motherboards that third-party software does not read the sensors correctly. So I had installed the AI Suite 3, and I just recently uninstalled it, but I'm not going to reinstall it right now. But in the AI Suite, that showed my 12-volt rail at 11.902 to 11.968. I had also done some troubleshooting to see whether or not if this was a power supply issue, and it is not. I've tested 3 different power supplies. The other 2 were from working systems, and in my X470 board, that one reads 12.068. When I move that power supply over here, it still reads the 11.902. So I'm wondering if the 12-volt rail might be limited on this motherboard. So if any of you buy this board and use hardware monitor, ignore this. But it looks like everything else is correct. The 5-volt is correct. The 3-volt is correct. CPU core voltage appears to be correct. And all the temperatures appear to be correct. Now, I don't know why the CPU VRM temperature isn't reading. But I never really looked that up on other programs. So I'm really not going to worry about that. But everything else seems to read correctly. So let's get out of here. Now, the other thing I need to go through with you guys is in the BIOS. Many of you will not like this about this BIOS, and I won't be surprised if there have been many other users of this board who have sent this board back, thinking that there was a problem with the motherboard itself. So let's reboot it here. And let's get into the BIOS. Okay, so in default mode, this actually comes up as advanced mode, but I switched it to where it comes up in easy mode. That's a lot better for me. Now, one of the main problems I actually have in the BIOS, I really hate the performance of the mouse cursor. I think ASUS could do a lot better job optimizing performance with use of the mouse. But what I'm getting to is starting out being in the BIOS, the mouse is actually fine. It runs good, there's no lag. But I'm going to go into the advanced. And for some reason in the advanced mode, the mouse kind of gets a little bit jerky or laggy. I don't know if you can see that. But that's obviously a performance issue within the BIOS. Switching in between menus, it kind of gets a little bit worse. Although it's not too bad to where it's not usable. I mean, you can actually use it. And this is not super bad. Clicking on settings can be a little bit of a pain because sometimes when you go to click on it, the mouse could move on you because it's so sensitive. And I don't even see on how you can actually change the sensitivity of the mouse within the UEFI. But I can go through all the settings. Everything is pretty good. But the problem occurs once we get into the monitor. Notice there on the T sensor, it starts out at 0 degrees Celsius and 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And then it reads NA. Then the PC temperature, PCH temperature, that changed in a hurry. I'm pretty sure this is a BIOS issue because I have watched another video of somebody going through the BIOS back at the initial release BIOS, which had the same exact problem. Now, the problem that we're having is, you guys all see that? I'm moving up and down, and there seems to be a tiny glitch with the mouse. And that's just me moving it up and down. So there's a brief pause in the UEFI in the monitor menu. And when I go into, well, not go into, but when I go to use the keyboard, I can go up and down. See how that pauses? That's a slight little bit of a concern to me. Not that it's affecting anything functionally, but this does feel like a BIOS issue, since it has had the problem since the initial release BIOS. So for those who buy this board and would like to monitor temps in the BIOS, I actually do not recommend being in here unless you want to deal with this slight lagginess. Now, once you leave this menu and go to like the boot menu, and this is another thing, I have a heck of a time getting out of it, but once you get out of it, it's fine again. I mean, it has just the small little bit of lag. Go to the advanced tab. Everything is working fine again. So it's only just that menu that gives the problem. Go back to easy mode. Still pretty good. Okay, let's get out of here. Actually, I want to do something real quick. Let's go into boot configuration. Post delay time is 0 seconds. And I actually need to go here because I need to go down to the Q fan controls. Okay, I want to change the low limit to 600 RPMs. Q fan controls, I usually leave those at auto. If anybody knows what this smooth up and down time is, put it down in the comments. I've actually never heard of that before. And right now I have no cases fan configurations that are actually hooked to the motherboard. Both of the fans in this Phanteks case are being controlled by the power supply. So they're running at full speed all the time, which is actually not too bad. Profile options will not load. There it goes. So you got standard, silent, turbo, and manual. Okay, let's go get exit. We'll go to save changes and hit OK to reset. So if you can deal with that with the BIOS, this is actually not a bad board. It's really stable. I've had no bad issues with it, I could say. So another thing I might do if I get time is I want to record thermals on this board, because there have been some reviews done on this board where this board and VRMs and CPU, chipset, all that gets really hot. And I did a test with Prime 95. And after 20 minutes, the CPU got up to 87 degrees Celsius. Motherboard was up at 66 degrees. And the chipset got up to 48 degrees Celsius. The motherboard and the chipset, that's acceptable. And the CPU temperature was in specification. But I think these temps could possibly be lowered, so the cooler might need an upgrade. However, I have the same CPU in my X470 board, and the temps only get up to like 71 degrees Celsius at the max, being stress tested, and the motherboard only gets up to 41 degrees Celsius. So I'm wondering if it's due to the fact that this board is a little bit lower end than X470, lower power phases, which could make it to where it needs more juice going through the board to ensure good functionality. But that's where I'm at right now with this board and this system. It's actually very stable once in Windows. It's actually survived every stress test I've put through it. GPU, stress test, CPU, motherboard, VRMs seem to be staying at a good level. So yeah, that's about it when it comes to this motherboard and this system. Now for CPU, I would recommend only going up to the 2700. If you want to throw a 2700X in this motherboard, I'd suggest you get adequate cooling for the CPU, as well as put a lot of case fans inside your box to keep the motherboard, the VRMs, and the CPU cool. If you want to throw in a 3000 series CPU, I'd recommend highest the 3700X. I wouldn't throw a 3800X or any of the Ryzen 9 CPUs in this board. But for what you're paying for, this is a nice board. So, I hope you all have a great day, and God bless you all.